Well, I'm actually pretty good at being alone at night. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And let's check out this guy's search history. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film that I am probably more excited that I actually feel comfortable saying, but I'll do it anyway. Detective Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu, which is funny because I admitted this right before we started. I have no interaction with the Pokemon universe, so which is why I think it was important to bring in an educated guest on the subject.
100% true. Ladies and gentlemen of Rhyme City, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome for the first time to our show writer, director, producer, and actor, not to mention Professor Sycamore from the Pokemon animated series himself, Mr. Jake Pake.
Hey, what's up, guys?
How are you?
Is that the Professor Sycamore voice? See, I wouldn't know. I would believe it if you said it was.
No, that was more just a Jake Pake, whispery voice.
Oh,
Nice,
okay.
getting sensual right from the top.
Nice. That's what we really do want that just
like
right from the beginning.
No, so terrific to have you on board because, as I said, I know nothing. Absolutely. This is kind of a slightly unusual case because, a lot of times we're doing somewhat obscure films and I'll come in with a lot of history about, for example, our episode on Korean cinema.
Sure.
And this is a case where I have absolutely no background, no standing, no knowledge, nothing. I'm a blank slate for which to both of you to project your love or distaste.
This is perfect, Matt.
Yeah.
Finally, a blank canvas for us to just paint
just
on.
yeah, and you're like you're like Ash when he first started out.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
I've
okay.
Young, vulnerable trainer, just looking for leadership, looking for guidance, looking for anything.
I'm teach me the ways. Show me.
Well, I want to ask right off the bat though, how do you think the Pokemon arrows, the tendrils of the Pokemon universe, how did they miss you?
See, for a second there, I thought you were there was actual tendrils, they were actually there's an octopus.
there
being
are
lots of tendrils.
Yeah. There's quite a bit.
I guess I'm slightly older in the room. I feel like my watching of Saturday morning cartoons. These are Saturday morning cartoons, right? But also a card game.
Mm-hmm.
But also a video game.
Yeah. My watching of Saturday morning
everywhere.
cartoons kind of ended with Voltron, the original.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I was not of the age.
Let me ask you this though.
And I didn't play any card games.
Let me ask you this, Shahir. Did you move away from these cartoons because of how you didn't get the role of the Black Power Ranger?
So this is a funny side story.
He seems sensitive. He's sensitive about that.
But it's gonna take a little bit of a dark turn this week because of an email we have. As always, you can email us in at @OnlyMoviePodcast or hit us up on Twitter at @OnlyMoviePod.
Sure.
And then email us in at
You did that
onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Boy, the amount of times I've gotten our email address wrong is criminal. But what's not criminal is Will from Australia emailing us in saying two things. People don't usually clap or cry or whatever in Australian cinema, but they did in Endgame and also in Justice League.
Wow.
So this is in reference to our question that we asked a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Avengers Endgame, and we said, I felt it was slightly unusual that people were applauding the entire way through the movie, and I wanted to know if that was a uniquely American thing. I'm obviously from New Zealand, which is not common, but we have had responses from Germany, from Taiwan, from Australia, all with a mixed bag, but all kind of saying the same thing, which is that these are countries where people don't tend to applaud in theaters, but all did during Endgame. But in this case, also in Justice League. So take that for what you.
Jake, did you see both of those films?
I did. Yeah. That was my initial impulse. Was where were they applauding in Justice League?
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess at the Wonder Woman moment.
Oh,
the Wonder Woman reveal.
Yeah,
That would be illogical for me.
Yeah.
Well, that was Batman v Superman.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
That's an applause-worthy moment, and the guitar riff alone is just like rock and roll.
I'll take that back then. There is no moment in Justice League, is there?
Maybe it's when Aquaman takes his shirt off. That seems applaudable.
Then he jumps off the thing and yells, "Yeah!" and leaps off down into the whatever's
Are they
happening.
applauding though, or they're just kind of going, maybe the movie's going to end soon? That's what they're sort of applauding for?
Yeah,
maybe it's when Batman has or is that Justice League where he has that whiskey right before they go into battle or whatever? He's like, "This could kill all of us," and he's like, "I'm gonna have a neat whiskey."
Yeah. Good old Bruce. Well, actually, I want to go on it. Sorry, now this is going to be Tangent Town 9000.
Okay.
There has been a little bit of Batman news.
Oh yes.
Robert Pattinson is pretty much, I think, locked in almost for sure at this point.
To play Robin?
To play Batman. Yeah. Here's the deal. I'm pumped for it.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's a weird shot in the arm, and it's a shot in the arm that the kind of and I don't want to poo-poo on DC sort of fan bases all the time, but like it's the exact kind of Batman I think like Robert Pattinson has range and like can be heavy, like, and everyone kind of does still just sort of think of him as Edward from Twilight if you haven't paid attention to his actual career in the
What's
last
Twilight?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But, like,
you could be that guy. Yeah.
But like I don't know, I think it's we've always seen sort of like older Batman.
This is a good way to get to know you, Jake. So let us know what do you think of the the DC cinematic universe,
Oh,
and
boy,
also
that's a dangerous question.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's tough. Like Matt was just saying, like there's been a fair amount of criticism about the way DC has handled their properties. Sure. And I agree that there have been some potentially missteps or some things that we would have hoped had been executed better. I always try and like be really constructive when I talk about this stuff because they're the types of rooms I want to be in. You know what I mean? Like I want to like be chatting with someone, and be like, "Cool, let's take a look at this Aquaman script. You know, let's chat about this."
Right.
So I will say that there are plenty of those characters that are like near and dear to my heart that I had hoped for more from. But that being said, like when I go see any of those flicks, I do try and take off the like hypercritical filmmaker mask and sit back and enjoy a cinematic experience because I find that like if you want to ruin a movie for yourself, you can always ruin a movie for yourself.
Yes. We're very good at that.
Yeah, you've come to the right place.
But do it afterwards. I mean, like hop on the pod and then ruin a movie for yourself.
Right.
But yeah, so I guess that's the best way I could put it is that there were some things that I had hoped for more from, but I still have a lot of like I mean, I guess excitement for them. They've got so many incredible characters and incredible properties.
Yeah.
It's like I'm always rooting for them. There's never a time where I'm like, screw y'all, you know?
And also, where DC has actually really shined, in my opinion, is both their straight-to-video animated films and an animated series, but also even it's a different kind of entertainment. But the CW stuff, like all this, like I know it is what it is, but like I really dig Arrow and Flash and all that. Like I think
their fan base is like very present. Like those those are some of their most successful properties. You'd have to say. You know?
And obviously Wonder Woman is fantastic, and I really like Shazam.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Haven't had a chance to see it.
It was
yet.
very, very delightful. And I didn't see Aquaman, so I don't. I mean, I feel like I wouldn't not like Aquaman. I will see it.
I'm interested for this iteration because it's going to be directed by Matt Reeves, who directed the Planet of the Apes films recently, which I really liked. I think Robert Pattinson's been doing really interesting work in the last few years. Films like Good Times, film like High Life, which came out this year, which I hope we will get to review. I guess the only thing is we had a conversation about, can Batman be black?
Yes.
And it was a broader conversation about representation.
Carolina Ravassa and Damian Lemon, guests on that episode. Go check that out.
Yeah. And it's not that I don't think Robert Pattinson is the right... he seemed like I think he would genuinely do a great job. I'm just sort of like
put him in the turtleneck; he'll be fine.
I'm sure he'll be great. I'm sure Matt Reeves is going to do a great job. They're talking about redefining the character somewhat closer to maybe the Arkham Asylum kind of mode of Batman into the cinematic world. All sounds great to me. I'm just like my excitement level, unless it's like radical casting, is sort of like somewhat tepid. You know what I mean?
I hear that.
Yeah,
I do.
It's like no hating the game here. I think everyone's great. If it's not,
I know you're more Team Jacob. It's totally fine.
I was gonna say, is Taylor is Taylor Robin?
And if they could get Kristen Stewart in it, then I'm all in.
Then you're there.
Absolutely.
Josh
got a big fan here.
Yeah.
So,
Josh Gad is also going to be Penguin. I think. Is
No.
circling around.
No.
Is that not real?
No, that's not real. That has been talked about a lot. And he sort of, ironically tweeted that he could take Robert Pattinson when it came out. I don't think there is talk.
Take him where?
Down the street
to dinner
in the Penguin Mobile. It's
right.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Sorry, tangent. My fault. My fault.
There's an additional part to this email which is a little bit darker in relation to your Power Ranger thing, which is why I kind of wanted to mention this. All this talk about Shahir not seeing himself on screen, which is something we talked about in Endgame, and not a single mention of the Black Power Ranger. Though googling on the matter quickly turned dark. I think you may have dodged a bullet, which I think.
Yeah.
This week we learned that the actor who played one of the Power Rangers, Paul Masgava, who is a New Zealand actor, passed away recently, and very sad to hear that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure fans of Power Ranger will be there. And here's a point. One thing I will say about this as well is I've jokingly mentioned that I was up for the Power Ranger.
Sure.
Pua was like, is a Power Ranger. Like
Yeah.
he is this devastatingly handsome, fit, funny, charming, incredible actor. And there, you know, like the
You auditioned for the Black Power Ranger.
I auditioned, but there was no way I was going to get the part if people like Paul were going for it. You know what I mean? And people like him should be doing it.
Of course.
You know what I mean? So it's very sad to hear his passing. I grew up in New Zealand watching him. He was very well known in a local sitcom called Shortland Street. His brother was also well known in New Zealand. So it's very sad for the family, you know, and all our condolences and that sort of thing. Moving on, second email here. Again, just bringing back to Endgame, people applauding in the audiences. If you're interested in an Australian take about applauding in cinemas, we're super hit and miss. It's not exactly common, but it's a known thing, especially as an American concept. In movies with really passionate fan bases like the Avengers, you either get a couple of people who are awkwardly trying to make it happen, but the rest of the cinema feels uncomfortable or stays quiet, or you get this magical critical mass where it feels weird not to cheer. If it happens, there's no middle ground. It's either awkward or it's incredible. I think in America, it's pretty incredible. I think that was my biggest takeaway from you know, like seeing Endgame was like, I think it was powerful to see it with an audience.
Sure. I definitely cheer on occasion. I don't think I cheered in Detective Pikachu, however. But that's not here. Jake, do you cheer? Have you ever found yourself overwhelmed in the theater in a moment like that?
Hell yeah. I'm trying to think about Detective Pikachu. I don't know if I had a moment like that. There are definitely some clap moments, like where people got excited and fired up. But no, Endgame, your Avengers, your Marvel movies, like there's definitely stuff that gets you out of your seat and gets you hollering. And then occasionally I am one of like the 3 or 4 people going like, woo!
Yeah.
When something happens. And again, depending on your audience, they're like, what's he clapping at? Where you like see a character or you know, like you're like, oh, I know what this means. Or like, what's going to happen? Like you can see it because you're like, if you've got... if you're tapped in on the nerd level, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, I know what this means. Or you see something coming.
Actually, on that note, I actually did have I didn't cheer, but I was like, yes, like vocally when the Psyduck moment happened, because Psyduck was always my jam growing up. So yeah, I don't know.
When they had Greninja in the little tanks, that definitely got like some excitement from me, because that's like that's one of my like best friends in the VO world, my buddy Billy Bob Thompson. He voices that on the show.
Oh,
so
nice!
It was very nice to see. Granted, you know, there isn't direct intersection. Like to the best of my knowledge, none of our cast is voicing the characters in the cinema.
Yes,
it's still very cool to see like some of your characters represented. I was scanning through and I was trying to look at lists of like all of the Pokemon that showed up, because it moves fast enough that I was like, did any of mine show up? Because I voiced a few of them. I voiced like half a dozen Pokemon, and like I don't think any of them did that. I thought I might have seen a Braviary for like a half a second. I gotta like dig in and like go frame by frame and see if I saw a Braviary. But my buddy Billy Bob voices Greninja, so when there was like some nice representation for Greninja, I was like, yeah, buddy.
That was very, very cool. I mean, we'll get into it a little bit more too, but the Pokemon represented in this film are definitely like a lot of the like I'll say some of the most recognizable from really, I mean, Gen 1, maybe Gen 2. I haven't really kept up much past the X and Y stuff. But that's neither here nor there.
I think we should get right into it, because I have no idea what either of you are talking about.
Before we even do that,
Shahir's going to take off.
I have no idea what any of you have just said.
So Jake, we know each other through mutual friends. Obviously, Simon, who was on the Fahrenheit 11/9.
I've heard of him.
Yes, and also Kristen, who was on a couple of them as well, our Warcraft episode, and a few others. Who actually,
I know her.
I don't know if you've met Kristen's boyfriend Nick, but Kristen, Nick, myself, and my girlfriend Jamie, we just actually got back this morning. I was hanging out with Kristen last night. We went to the TWA hotel. The opening of this, like that airport, like the old airline hotel at JFK. We literally went to JFK to spend one night in an airport.
Incredible.
It was pretty cool. We had like martinis in like the old plane that used to like fly the Hughes around in, like they turned it into a bar.
Did you reenact Catch Me If You Can?
We did run down because they had those big red big red, like, I guess, land bridges, and we ran down those. So I was hanging out with Kristen, and she got us in contact with one another to get you on here, because we'd heard, or she informed me that you had been doing quite a bit of Pokemon work, because you are an awesome voice actor. How did you get involved initially with Pokemon as a property? Was that something that was like a first gig, a later gig? Like, how did it all shake out?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try and race through my origin story
Yes.
really quickly
need
here.
this.
Yeah. So my parents got divorced. No, I'm kidding. I mean, that really happened, but it's not part of the voice acting origin story. So I came out here as an actor, and you know, I was doing, I love doing comedy. I love doing stuff like that. I love doing on-camera work. And so I was really, you know, joining on a bunch of different projects and things like that. And one time I was on this, like, I was shooting this sketch about, like, I think I was playing, like, a sportscaster or something. And this, like, little short, like, 2.5-minute comedy video. And, the producer, like, came when I was on a break. I was at the craft services table, like, having some carrots or celery or something.
Yeah.
And one of the producers came over, who I'd been, you know, in email contact with, and she just asked me, she's like, "Hey, so how's it going? You know, like, what else you working on right now?" And interestingly enough, like, some of my friends, even like going back into high school, like, we were the kids with, like, you know, the first digital cameras, like, in our friend groups, and, like, you know, filming on like Hi8s and VHSCs. And all
Oh
this stuff
yeah.
like that. Like, we were those kids, and we stayed in touch, and we continued to try and, like, make stuff, whether it be albums. And one thing that we were doing at that time was, to my buddies, we're like, we're gonna, you know, we don't all live in the same place anymore, but we're gonna try and make a 10-minute cartoon.
Right.
Like, we've got some ideas we've been pitching around, and we, like, know this guy who's been dabbling in animation, so we're gonna try and do this. Like, do you want to tag in? And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, we'd like to also, like, you know, when we always used to mess around, you'd play all these crazy characters. We'd love you to, like, you know, read for some of the voices and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck yeah, of course. And so I did. I think I ended up, like, doing 3 voice roles on this show where there are only, like, 6 characters.
This is the cartoon that you guys were working on.
Yeah. That, again, like, I'd done some VO work and, like, been like dabbling in some commercial stuff, but I hadn't done any animation at all. Like, I'd never done anything like that.
Right.
And I just happened to tell this producer on set, I was like, well, you know what? Actually, right now I'm working on a cartoon with some colleagues of mine, which is really fun. It's really exciting stuff. She's like, oh, that's neat. Like, what's it about? And I kind of told her a little bit. And anywho, like, flash forward to a year later.
Oh, wow.
I get an email from her, like, totally out of the blue. Haven't seen her or talked to her since that shoot. And she's like, hey, are you still doing, like, a voiceover for cartoons? And I was like,
Yes. Yes, I am.
yes. And she's like, cool. She's like, I actually just took a position at a studio, and that's, like, what we do. Like, we do anime. We do, like, dubbing and prelay. Like, would you want to come in audition? And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, cool. Brought me in. I was very excited. And like I said, I'd been doing enough, like, commercial VO work, like, even small stuff, to be like, okay, like, I'm not freaked out in front of a microphone.
Of course.
I'm not, like,
Yeah.
you know, gonna have a meltdown. But that being said, that didn't mean that I was, like, prepared for what was about to happen. And this particular director that I was auditioning with is, he's a dynamic person, I would say. I'd say he's dynamic.
Polite. Yep, I like the way
And so I got in there, and understandably, he'd, like, never heard of me before, knew that I was, like, a recommendation from someone. And he probably in his lifetime of doing this for however long, he's probably seen hundreds of me, and he's like, what are you doing here? But I told him what I was working on, and he was like, cool, yeah, that's not what we do. We don't do any of that. I was like, okay.
You mean they don't do cartoons?
Well, no, because I told him what I was working on. You
Right,
know? Like,
right,
and
right.
I was, like, doing some commercial stuff, and I had done, like, one cartoon with some friends where I, like, recorded stuff at home and sent it to them for them to do the prelay on it.
Yeah.
And he basically was like, your experience means nothing here.
Right.
And he's like, what he ended up doing is he pointed at a picture on the wall. There was a big poster of, like, this character who was, like, he's like a protagonist, but he had some kind of, like, eyeliner stuff. He was pretty emo.
Yeah.
And then he slid a piece of paper to me with just, like, a full page full of cues, like, or lines. And again, so folks know, like, when you get a script a lot of times for a show, depending on what it is, like, your lines when you're doing animation or cartoons, like, don't always have the other character's lines. You just have your own lines.
Yeah.
So it's just a page full of just lines by a character that you have no context for.
Yeah,
or
I was going to ask,
nothing.
how do you like, if a line is responding to someone else, how do you kind of read the response?
Yeah, you got to trust your director to prepare you. And a lot of times, if you're lucky, you're doing it in a situation, in the rare occasions where you can do prelay, and you're doing it, like, you might actually get to do it with someone.
Right.
It's very uncommon, though. So usually you're either trusting your director to guide you to that moment and let you know it's happening, and either that or show you, or there's a chance that depending on where you are within the record schedule, people might be in.
Or you might be able to, would you be able to hear their voices?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. They might have recorded before you. Like, a lot of times they might put in, you know, scheduling's really tough, but you might put in, like, a lead role so that the bedrock of the piece is already in there, so more people have someone to respond to.
Right.
So anywho, he just slides this sheet of cues to me, and he says, that's that guy.
Right.
Go for it. And I immediately knew. I was like, oh, this is where it all ends.
Can you do the voice? Do you remember the voice?
No.
Come
no.
on. Okay, I'm putting it in your head right now.
Yeah.
Emo guy, protagonist with eyeliner, probably in a strong pose.
Yeah, what's funny, like it's gonna be an adaptation of what I probably did. Like, there's no way I remember exactly what I did. But again, if you did that exact same thing, I'd probably be like, "We need to secure the fort. Let's go."
I buy it.
Yeah. So I started flying through these cues, and probably like a quarter of the way through the page, he just starts like grabbing the paper. He's like, "Oh, okay," and like slides away from me. He's like, "That's not awful."
Oh. Do you remember? I mean, was this that was specifically the audition, but did that character actually become a thing?
Well, that character, interestingly enough, that character was already part of a show they were doing.
Okay.
Like, so I think I even know who that was. That might have been my buddy Jason Griffith. I think that might have been him who was doing that.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was on a show that I actually later worked on. So I'm kind of
Sure.
jumping
Doing the
ahead.
jumps.
Yeah.
But when I walked out of there, I was like, cool, don't ever have to worry about working on cartoons ever again. Like, that was a fun experience, but now we know.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear anything from them for a while, but like a week later, I got an email again from the producer who was like, hey, the director, thought it was good meeting you, is willing to, like, if you're interested, would you be interested in coming in and basically doing some walla for us, which is like background stuff. You know what I mean? So... they're like, we're just gonna bring you in for like a half-hour session for once, see how it goes, see what it plays out like. Are you down to do that? And that was infinitely better than what I anticipated.
Right? Yeah.
So I was like, hell yeah, and I did it. And honestly, that was like the very germ of all, like, everything that came after that. You know what I mean? I went in and did background voices for probably, I don't know, a handful of sessions. Then they gave me, I still remember like my first like handful of like real cues as like a person with a name. Like, oh, cool, he's got a name. Right. And that was like a big deal. Like I said, that ended up being on the show with the kind of like emo dude that I definitely wasn't voicing.
Yeah.
Can I ask, like, now, do you get a chance to kind of like create the character and like come up with voices and audition them, or is it? Are you still just kind of walking in and like being given something and saying, adapt this?
Oh, interesting. I mean, like, I'd say that usually, like, when you audition, there's like a spectrum of things you might bring to an audition. Like, if you're sending something in for people to consider to then bring you in, or if you're actually in the room doing it, again, your director will kind of hopefully provide you with some guidance. You know what I mean? So like, if I bring something in, they're like, hey, just so you know, I know you don't know everything about this character, but they actually, like, were imprisoned as a child and are really, like, soft-spoken. So again, if I came in there with a bunch of bombast and yelling, they'd be like, just so you know, that's like super not this character.
Right.
So yeah, and it's usually, I would say, even if it's something that already exists and you're doing a dub for it, you typically have a decent amount of freedom. Like, they might tell you if it's a voice match, what I'm saying? If they're like, hey, even though this is in Japanese, they want this exact type of timbre or tone.
Yeah.
But I'll still say, like, a lot of times they want something that you're bringing to it. You know what I mean? Like, I'd say more often than not, at least in my experience, they want something that I'm able to bring to it more than just pure copycat.
Gotcha.
Right.
But there are a lot of people out there that are great mimics, like great mimics.
Yeah, there's a great story about the French Tom Cruise, for example. There's one guy who
does all of Tom Cruise,
who only does Tom Cruise in movies,
Yeah.
and they like, he's got this exact timbre that is exactly what they need for the movie. So
incredible.
So I mean, like, that's an interesting sort of take on it, whether you're allowed, whether the English interpretation kind of changes it in some way. And in your experience, now tell us a little bit about the shows that you've kind of been working on. That I mean, obviously, Pokemon is one of them that brought you to this table.
Yeah.
But what are the other shows that you've been working on?
So I've been fortunate enough to be working on Pokemon for quite a while now. I also work on Yu-Gi-Oh! I've been there for a while. I'm fortunate enough to right now be the protagonist of that series, Yusaku Fujiki, also known as Playmaker. So that's a really fun one. I love both those shows a ton. I work in the Gundam universe. I'm one of the boyfriends in Winx Club, a series regular on that show, which is like a fairy show. It's a pretty popular, like, kind of, I don't know, tweens age show, which is a trippy show. It's one of the trippier shows that I'm on. Considering the fact that I'm not considering Pokemon a trippy show, like, Winx Club is crazier.
Okay.
It's interesting too because, sorry, this is a side tangent as well, but like, you are correct. Pokemon does not seem odd anymore. Pokemon's been around so long that, like, the idea of capturing animals in mirror balls that then you can not only befriend but have them fight your battles for you. I'm like, yeah, it's Tuesday.
Indeed, yeah. You keep them in a ball, but they love you.
But they love you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's pause here for a second.
Yeah. Gotta bring Shahir in.
Yeah. Jake, explain to
they're pocket monsters, Shahir. They're pocket monsters.
That's what it means.
Oh, that makes so much. No, I did know that, but okay, blank slate here, complete blank slate. I understood there's. I know that there's a thing that you throw at these little monsters, animals.
Pocket monsters.
Explain to me Pokemon.
Well, I think the most important thing for you to know is that there's a young boy named Ash who is a vampire because he doesn't age.
That's true.
So he's immortal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his last name is
like Bart on The Simpsons.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
His last name is literally Ketchum.
Yeah.
Ash Ketchum.
Ash Ketchum.
Okay.
And he's going to catch them all.
Okay.
You see where we're going with
I
this.
see where you're going, but explain to me what Pokemon. I mean,
Well, so I mean, I don't. How do you want to handle
for
this
example,
lesson?
Like I'm not as well invested in Godzilla, but I understand what that is. You know what I mean? I'm not as well invested in Gundam, but I understand what that is. Pokemon is one I was kind of like, what are the rules of this world? What happens here?
Sure. Well, okay. I'll start a little bit. Like, the Pokemon universe, you know the basics, at least of, like you said, like, primarily it's trainers. Like, we're focusing on these trainers. Ash Ketchum is a trainer. He's our protagonist that we've been following for...
Training for what?
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed. So, you capture these Pokemon, and then you battle with them in a way that is supportive, and everybody is happy to
Are the
be
Pokemon
there.
happy about this?
Oftentimes, yes. It's almost like, I mean, it's hard to, but like they are happy and they're always like healed at the end, and they never die in Pokemon battles. They only faint.
Wait,
though,
okay.
though, especially in some of the cartoons and the video games, it gets fairly brutal from time to time.
So, question:
Yeah.
why are they fighting?
Well, so the trainers are trying to become the very best Pokemon trainer. It's almost like why play a sport.
Okay,
But it's if this sport
so
was
it's like a sport,
Absolutely.
like horse riding,
and also
Wait, is horse riding? Hold on. It's like,
well, like show jumping.
yeah,
It's
sure,
like show jumping, right?
like a gallop. A gallop is a competition.
Pokemon is basically dressage. But like it's interesting because the world of Pokemon is it's as if let's change Pokemon to like baseball, right? Let's just say baseball is the thing that everyone wants to get the best at. It's as if the entire world, like and the economy and the social structure and everything was based off of baseball. So in the Pokemon world, everything is based off of Pokemon and Pokemon battles. Like there's industries around it and there's all this stuff, which actually makes, and we'll get into it a little bit when we get into this film, the choice of having it in this one particular city, Rhyme City, where it's not like this is the one place, I guess, on the Poke world or whatever that like isn't obsessed with battling.
Okay, follow-up question.
Yeah.
What's at stake?
Well, so I guess there are championships, and we have to assume that lots of times there is. I'm not sure if there is actually like currency mentioned. I can't think of
I don't think there
mentions
ever
of that.
is. I think that might get a little too.
But status, like, because the best trainers in the world often are these people that have these, like, incredible lives, you know what I mean?
Right.
And things like that. Like, sometimes you'll meet, like, famous trainers and they're, like, fantastic. You know what I mean?
Right.
They have these fabulous experiences and worlds that they live in. But yeah, like, the sporting analogy is, like, the best analogy. Because you'll go to different regions and different places, and there's constantly like a new title, a new belt that people are going for.
You can always look to the west or look to the north.
Absolutely. There's always a new place you've never heard of before.
And is Ash? How old is Ash?
Well, technically, I
No,
think
no,
like 38 or
Yeah,
something
at this
like
point.
that.
No, but in the show terms, does he have like parents? Does he have?
15, 14?
Oh, I think it's like 12 or 14.
Is it?
And,
Yeah.
and are humans like the humans we know in the world? Like, are
Yes.
they like? Do
Ash
they
has
have?
a mom.
Does he go to school? Does he? like-
No.
No.
No, I think they've like dabbled in stuff like that before. They're like weaves in and out like why that isn't a problem.
Like the Pokemon like can cheat, like not in a strictly.
I-
No, we're trying to
Yeah,
explain it.
yeah.
Like the Pokemon, like you're supposed to like. It's almost like a what's the Amish trip when you go out?
Rumspringa.
yeah. I was gonna say Reykjavik, which is just
Which is
not correct.
Iceland?
No.
Yeah.
But it's like even though this kid's 12 years old, it's like he's going to go out and like experience the world, which apparently in this world is safe. And even though there's literally a team out to murder him
Several.
consistently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's Team Rocket, and
Look-
there's
Yeah.
usually teams everywhere else. Too
Yeah.
that
I don't-
watch
I don't
refer
mean to
I'm
sound-
one of them right now. Actually,
You're Team
Really?
Rocket.
No, I'm Team Skull, who
Oh.
are the Alolan thugs that are coming after Ash.
And are you trying to kill Ash? Is that?
No, because I'm we're young people too. No, it's never quite like that. It doesn't go that dark. I mean, this is very, I'd say,
Steal his Pokemon.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
Like, and we want him to fail. We want our leadership to be better and to win battles.
Yeah.
And so we look at him, especially he's an outsider.
Right.
Ash came to Alola.
Is he part of a team?
No.
Who's that?
Ash.
Ash usually rolls solo.
Wow.
So
One man
Ash
wolf
is
pack.
like,
Dark.
if it's the political spectrum,
This is the emo kid,
Ash,
right?
well, Ash would be like an independent. And these other teams would be like established political
He's like a
parties.
free agent, like in the
Yeah.
baseball leagues?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I would, right?
Look,
I mean, that's
I don't want to sound condescending about it because it's just the world I just don't know anything about.
Yeah.
And the other thing I guess I'm sort of unsure about is like at what age is this show pitched to?
I love that this turned into just us teaching.
No, I'm
Shahir
excited
Pokemon.
about this. Because I want to know.
Also, I should say there's no doubt that I am like misstating certain things. People are
course.
going to be like, "Wait, this guy's been on the show for how long?" And
Yeah.
he said what?
No, I mean, this is something that's been, I mean, you have to look at all the different iterations of this entire property. Like, we can't summarize it all entirely. Like, I was originally introduced to Pokemon just with the old Game Boys, and the games were Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue, and you could put a link cable between your old, like, black and white Game Boy,
Right.
and you'd have the monsters that you'd train in the game, and then you could trade them with friends with this, like, link cable. And that's how, like, even before the cartoon and anything.
No,
He's got a list of
I've
questions.
just got, like every time you guys say something, I've just got like
Sorry,
more
sorry,
questions
sorry.
to add.
So,
to this.
so the goal in the game is similar. You don't play Ash as the game. You
Right.
play as like you type in your own name, like Matt
Right.
or whatever, and you become the very best. And so if you and I were playing Pokemon,
Yeah.
And you had a Pokemon that you had caught and trained, and I had a Pokemon that I had caught and trained, and we both were like, oh, we don't have those on our specific games. We could trade for them.
And do we trade permanently?
Yes.
Okay. A couple other questions. The Pokemon, like for example, this week the trailer for His Dark Materials came out, and there's an entire universe in the His Dark Materials Golden Compass world where everyone has this sort of cipher character that cipher animal that that is sort of an extension of their personality. What is the relationship between the trainer and the Pokemon?
Well, yeah, that's something that's explored in Detective. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I would say that in at least the animated series, that universe, like they do try to imbue on you that like you can have a special relationship with a Pokemon that is kind of like a best friend relationship, and that's what the goal should be, to have kind of like a really pure, powerful,
Yes.
like the sum of our parts is greater than whatever the rest of this catchphrase is,
Right.
yeah, so that's I think what they try to get people, because like I said, the bad guys will often have unhealthy relationships with their Pokemon,
Yes.
and that's
Right.
how you know they're bad characters,
Right.
Because like they will be like mean or rude, or they'll be, and like they wouldn't say it this way on the show, but they'll have like an abusive relationship with them, or they'll
Right.
fight them too hard and be disrespectful and rude.
But then what? Sorry, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting.
No,
all the time, but
no.
I just have so many questions. We
This
haven't
is
even
very
hit the movie.
strange. No, we gotta get
Was
through
there
it.
a movie?
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Why are we here? What is happening?
This is just a secret ruse for me to understand Pokemon so I can teach it to my kid.
He was gonna Google like Pokemon Explainer, but instead,
Here we are.
My question is then how much agency do the Pokemon have in deciding their battles? So,
Oh.
for example,
yeah.
okay,
So-
no, go ahead.
So once you've captured, because they use that vernacular, it is capturing a Pokemon.
Yeah.
They don't particularly have that much agency, but it's the same way. Kind of like what you said,
Dressage.
Jake. Yeah,
Just like
dressage.
dressage.
Yes, just like dressage.
If
Where
the horse doesn't want to jump over the thing.
you have to befriend the Pokemon to make it want to do the thing.
Okay.
Like again, Team Rocket, Team Skull. They often aren't I don't know actually the current stuff, but like I remember Team Rocket, like they had their few, but it seemed like because they were so sort of mean to their Pokemon, like the Noxus or I can't remember what they had, the snake one. They like throw them out and they do battles, but like they wouldn't fight that hard because the animals don't give a crap about the team that they're fighting for. But like if you befriend them, and like for instance Ash with Pikachu, Pikachu and Ash are sort of like best friends, and they've been through a lot, and like Pikachu knows that Ash has his best interest at heart, and vice versa. And so that's more like an actual like animal pet relationship that's a little bit more, I guess, hyper intelligent than.
But it's also like dogfighting because you're gonna send Pikachu.
Wow,
off into battle.
you're the first person to ever equate dogfighting to Pokemon.
Just it seems
No,
In a
you're
world
right, I mean-
where they can't die,
Yeah.
and or not in a battle anyway. I think they can die of old age, I believe. and there's Poke Centers everywhere that you can actually heal them after battles, and there's people to address those things.
I would say the biggest thing, like from my perspective and our perspective, is that like you are right. They have limited agency, and they do try and showcase this a lot. Like even in the movie, like when he tries to catch, remind me what it is in the field.
Cubone.
Yeah, he tries to catch that Cubone in the field. You can see that the Cubone is not consenting, I guess would be the best way I could say it.
Yeah.
And so there's that pushback, and they do try and show so they have a little bit of control or agency. And when captured, like you said, the battles can go awry if you don't have a healthy relationship with your Pokemon. So it's trying to like instill like responsibility, compassion, and these types of things. And so what we focus on, I think, a lot on the show is really heightening, and like there are many episodes and entire films that are about the intensity and the importance of having a like respectful, loving relationship with your Pokemon, and that stuff's all about like as I said, like friendship, sympathy, understanding, compassion, like all that type of stuff, and so it keeps going into it because you are right, like. In the negative end, it has some like real eyebrow raising, like, wait a second, what's the construct?
Yeah.
But then if we dive into and focus on like those positive elements, like then that's I think where it has a lot of value to its to the younger viewers, especially where they're trying to teach like values, you know what I'm saying, or trying to share positive values.
And again, like I don't mean to sort of sound like I'm.
If you say Michael Vick, I'm going to be very
Yeah,
angry.
yeah.
It's not, Shahir, that's not. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. No, the interesting thing is, so we actually just did an episode on this on Extra Credits on YouTube, where we talk about like how a game's mechanics. This was a game first.
Okay.
How
A Nintendo game or
yeah,
something?
on the Game Boy. It is based on JRPGs. It's based on this thing that the normal structure in like a Dragon Warrior or whatever was out sort of at the time is like go into the cave, fight the monster, kill the monster, take the stuff, move on so you can fight the bigger monster with the new stuff. It's the same sort of reward loop.
Right.
Pokemon has that reward loop, and there is, especially before the animated series, there is a narrative disconnect with the actual gameplay that you're doing and what the world is telling you. Like, you're in these brutal battles, but it's okay, because whatever. But then the animated series came along, and I think did a very good job at filling in the gaps as to, like, like that is the skeleton that this is built off of, but that's not where the heart or like where actually the meaning of what the story they're trying to tell is. And as gaming technology has gotten better, we've gotten better at telling those stories in the game. But before it was like 4 different colors of gray and little bits of text box, and you can get some, but not all of it. So it's grown a lot, I think, through the animated series.
I think, too, like a really great thing about the show, what it allows to do, maybe in the same way that things like Transformers did, like it took it from strictly being, like it could have stayed just in the video game world or the card world, and we could have had these like very fun and engaging things. Like people, like the games are beloved.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
like no matter what, those are beloved and people are going to enjoy them and consume them. But the show gave it so much like context and heart. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's something where we're like, oh, like now I have a reason even more to like care about a Pikachu. Like why is Pikachu so signature? Like yes, it's really great from the games and it's, you know, like it's an involved and it's like kind of the trademark. But at the same time, I think if it weren't for the show, people would not have the investment in it.
No way.
The heart is so much harder to imbue in a trading card game or even in a video game, especially because those earlier games, like you mentioned, you know, we were still on the kind of cutting edge and like, you know, our Final Fantasies and things like that, where we were like learning how to tell compelling story telling.
And that took a while.
Yeah, for us to like really do that. And like you said, we were in 8-bit gaming, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so now let's take a sort of a leap forward from
Sure.
like educating what an 8-year-old Shahir should know,
Right.
into my age now, and I'm going to see Detective Pikachu in theaters, directed by Rob Litterman and Pikachu voiced by none other than Deadpool himself, Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
What is Detective Pikachu is quite a sort of a different variation or iteration of the Pokemon lore. How do we get from Ash Ketchum to Detective Pikachu?
See, I actually had no idea before the film. I knew there was a game, but I never played the game. And I think in the game, he's got like a real like gruff detective voice. Like it's very more off-putting than Ryan Reynolds.
It's film noir.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to say stereotypical, but it's prototypical, like you said, like 30s detective.
Yeah.
Like kind of like the deep gravelly, like has that smoked 4-pack of Marlboro Reds for
So how did we get here?
I mean, I think they I mean, this is just now we're just literally, I guess, into opinion, right? Because like they just chose to do this, and I think actually very smart. They've done Pokemon films before, but they've all been animated.
Well, no, okay, I guess maybe one step back. How did because Detective Pikachu is an adaptation of a video game, right?
Yes.
How did the video game come about from the Pokemon lore?
You know, actually, I'm going to be like transparent. Like, I don't actually know the inception point of that. I would guess that like the Detective Pikachu game is like a very different stylistic approach to the other games.
It's a spin-off.
Not in the way that again you're again having not played them, it might be a little difficult to kind of see it.
Yeah.
But like the other ones they have a narrative, but they are, as you said, they're kind of they're RPGs. Like you take your creatures, your Pokemon, and you battle them, and you're working towards a goal. I think the Detective Pikachu games are like it's a very different model. It's like a really, really different model that engaged people because it took a property that they knew and loved and some characters that they knew, kind of like turned it on its head a little bit and made it like a different type of gameplay that really rewarded people. Kind of like the I don't know if it's a great analogy, but I think there was like a Rick and Morty style Pokemon game. Did anybody?
No.
There was a VR Rick and Morty.
I remember that, but I'm sure that they're also.
To be honest with you, that to me sounds really innovative and really cool. Like
Well, so-
the idea that you would take like everything you've been telling me about Pokemon and then spin it off into a film noir.
And that
sounds cool to me.
That's how I think it should be, and that's why I think it was very, very smart on the team, the producers, or whomever decided that this was going to be the first live-action Pokemon movie to go in this direction, because it takes people like you, Shahir, who literally have no idea about this, kind of sets it up. And you'll tell me if you thought it was enough to get sort of what the world was doing, but like. It would be hard, I think, for a person just to come in, and if the film was all about Ash training and making it basically like this weird sort of sports movie analogy, but with monsters, you would understand it, but you probably wouldn't give a shit. Like there's no Ash's, like, it happens on occasion in the show, but like there's no like personal tie to it. He just wants to be the best. Like that's the whole thing, and because that, whatever. In this film and the way they sort of did it, I thought they did a very good job. And Justice Smith, in particular, was a linchpin anchor for me in this story, because, like, him and Pikachu, weirdly enough, were the two characters that I felt were not cookie cutter in this film, and they made me I was like, oh, this is a great grounding point for people who have no idea what's going on to just jump into a fantastical world because they care about these two characters. And you see the rest of the stuff, and for people that are in the know about it, like you saw the Snorlax sitting in the street, like blocking traffic, because that's what a Snorlax does. It just literally just sits in paths and falls asleep, and no one can move it.
It's a cool superpower.
Yeah. I think you need a flute or something in the game. I don't remember, but like, there was just a ton of like sort of like side things you could see. Jigglypuff singing karaoke. Jigglypuff's power is when it sings, you fall asleep, and then there's a dude sleeping at the bar, and it was pissed off because it's always pissed off when people fall asleep and it sings. Duh. But it was such a nice like. You could tour the world and have fun if you understood everything, but you understanding everything has literally nothing to do with whether or not you'll understand and probably enjoy the journey that the characters are going to take.
Yeah, I want to say two things really quickly. Like, I do agree that sometimes, especially because of how long the animated series has been on, like searching for motivation in any show that's been on for 21 years is really difficult. And I think the show does a really good job of trying to continue to motivate it. Like, so you're like, why is Ash still doing this? How did Ash not succeed yet? Because Ash has, like, at this point, 1 million titles and all this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're like, how is Ash not just filthy rich, like on Nona Island or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they do work on it like constantly, like every series, every even like, arcs within arcs about things like whether it's for family or whether for someone else or there's a tragedy or someone hurt a Pokemon. Like they do a constant job of trying to re-up the stakes and the purpose, which again, as we all know, anything that goes on that long, it gets so hard. Like it's hard to make The Simpsons relevant to people after 30 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to keep things not stale, it takes a lot of work. And I think the animated series is doing a good job of trying to do that. And also, I will say, like this season, or not this season, this arc and this Alola arc that we're on right now, Sun and Moon, they went over to like a very different animation style than we had been in for quite a while, which was very eye opening to a lot of people. And like I think a lot of people loved it right away, and some people kind of had their eyebrows raised. But at this point now, like people really dig it, and it's one of those things where if you look back, like now people are very used to it and it's like signature and it's the Sun and Moon kind of look. But if you look back and you saw like, some of my episodes as Professor Sycamore and XY, you'd be like, oh yeah, that is very different,
Yeah.
And the other thing was too, I just want to agree that like our protagonist, Tim.
Yes.
he's such an essential part of this, and like as an actor being able to, I think with these types of movies you cannot take yourself too seriously. Like if you come at this and everything is like absolutely as is, like you must take this seriously, like we just can't look at a world like Rhyme City and be like, why are you taking yourself so seriously? So for his ability to be dismissive and his like off the cuff shoulder shruggy comedy is like so essential. And I bet they knew that going into it. They're like, if you can't pull that off, like we will drown in your seriousness.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was a character who, like, I like that there was sort of a bit of a history, like even when we see the recreation of his old room and stuff, like he wanted to be a trainer, but he is a character that this world has kind of left behind. He's an accountant or something. I forget what his actual insurance.
Yeah.
So like it's that atypical dream of like you want to be an astronaut when you're a kid. I'm not an astronaut. Whatever. So like it's that, okay, well life sort of moves on. And here's a character that the world is all about these Pokemon, and he's kind of just been like, whatever, this isn't for me. And then that's the character that the audience for this film is now sort of latching onto. I thought was a really like solid starting off point.
Okay, let's go deep dive into the movie itself here. So Matt, do you want to tell us what Detective Pikachu is actually
We
about?
always read the IMDb quotes because sometimes, or the descriptions, because they're often wrong. Let's see, where did it go? Doop, 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 doop. Here it is. In a world where people collect Pokemon to do battle, a boy comes across an intelligent talking Pikachu who seeks to be a detective.
Okay, pause right here. First off, so the one part of this we hadn't covered, which I kind of gathered
Sure.
from the pieces of the film.
Right.
Pokemon don't talk.
Right.
Okay, this is a big deal in the Pokemon world.
Very
right?
few Pokemon talk.
Yeah.
Okay, fill me
Very
in.
few.
Fill me in. Okay.
Meowth, who is the Pokemon that like is paired up with Team Rocket. Who this probably all still seems like a foreign language.
I'm riding with it. I'm going on with it. Yeah.
Meowth is like honestly for a long time was like one of our very 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 rare talking Pokemon.
Right.
And in this world, I did kind of like I was eyebrow raising and I was kind of like digging in on Detective Pikachu. Technically, some if not many of our telepathic Pokemon can communicate, but they're not speaking technically. They're speaking telepathically, which gives them that ability, which is true for Mewtwo. Yeah. Mewtwo can communicate using telepathy.
Okay.
Which made me wonder, so this is something that I haven't actually figured out, haven't dug back in, so this can be a moment where
let's go into the film.
I get really like, people can be like, you're an idiot. Hopefully the comments, fill up in the comments, let you know if you think Jake's an idiot.
And also this will be spoilers. We've been talking for a bit. We're now into full spoilers. Don't worry about it. Yeah, we can just roll
I
in.
didn't even think about that.
No.
With Mewtwo, like when that was unveiled, also interesting thing about like gender, many Pokemon don't technically have gender. There's a lot of it.
Okay.
Some of them do, but a lot of them don't.
Yeah, for a while there wasn't, and then there were he, she's, and so like that was a whole thing too. Like there were a lot of them that were all like named by gender in the piece, and I was like, oh, is that one supposed to be? Is that one? You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a lot of stuff to dig in on there. But this Mewtwo in the very beginning, I think it did speak, like it made some sounds or something like that, and I was like, so whose voice would that be?
And who's listening to it? Because if it's telepathic?
Yeah, who's it communicating to?
Right.
Because it speaking in the orb in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And because like later we learn, I'm skipping way ahead here, but later we learn that Bill Nye is working to, use this new technological tool. But I was like, was that Bill Nye's voice? Like, whose voice is Mewtwo, and who's he talking to?
Right.
Anywho, there's some stuff
like
there.
who has caught Mewtwo? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, I think
Why, like it was when it was in the chamber and it was like grunting and doing whatever.
Yeah.
Like it was
It's generating R, right? The drug R.
Oh, it did do that.
They're extracting it from it. I
Yeah.
guess.
Where's it coming?
I don't
Orifice.
know. Yeah. Well, something I really liked actually from the voice acting angle. It was actually for Mewtwo's voice in this film. It was a mix of a male and a female voice. Like they had the same two actors doing it at the same time, and they did a mix of it to make it sound like an everyone sort of thing.
Until it was Bill, you're saying?
Yeah, Bill was Bill.
But so there's only the one line then, right?
No,
I mean,
it talks
was
a decent. Like it talks.
Oh, at
it
the
talks
second
to-
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and there's a couple. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go. And I think
We're fine. We got this.
Jake, we should go with you first. Like general impressions of the film itself. Like as a movie, not have I know having worked on it, you'll have a special affiliation to it, but just kind of just sitting in the audience, what was your impression of the movie?
I was fortunate enough to see it with a bunch, with like a huge contingent of the Pokemon animated series cast.
So not biased in any way.
Nope, not at all. Completely objective viewers. No, but I think I'll only speak for myself. I enjoyed it a lot, and I want this to come out the right way. I enjoyed it a ton. We laughed and had a great time, and like we're pointing at the Pokemon and like thought certain elements of it were really cool. And I think the biggest sigh of relief I had, when it was done, it was like, I'm so glad that wasn't trash.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in any. That's not about that. It's about because like we just know we've talked
Are you
about
Sonic
DC
shaming us
earlier.
right now?
Nope. Hey, I've got great love for those people. I've got a lot of friends on that show as well.
Yeah.
So we talked earlier about like DC and like even Marvel's had its missteps. Like everything that we love has had major missteps.
Yeah.
And this was the first foray into like live action mixed with CG that we had in the Pokemon universe. And I was just afraid, you know what I mean? Like because I wasn't a part of this process or whatever. So I was just as green to what was about to happen on screen as anyone else. You know what I mean? So that's not to say I don't have faith in the people that we're making it. It's just one of those really difficult things. Like, same with like DC and Marvel have been creating incredible content for like 75, 85 years or whatever, but that doesn't mean duds don't still come out.
Yeah.
And it's not because those people aren't incredibly intelligent and smart. You know what I'm saying? Like
Things happen.
Yeah, we've had incredible directors direct things that are widely panned. So anyway, that's just to say, like, despite the fact that I knew that there was a ton of talent going into the creation, like I was so pleased that I was able to enjoy the movie with the cast. You know what I mean? And for the most part, like folks enjoyed it. Of course, there were plenty of people that had thoughts and things.
in that group, in that contingent of the Pikachu of Pokemon fan people that you worked with, were there people? I mean, were you able to be critical of it in any way in amongst your the people that you were watching with?
Poke peers?
Poke peers?
Yeah, not publicly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
but like,
there were
Let's
people.
just turn the mics off for a second.
yeah.
Here. No.
So what I was going to say is, no, I will say that there were some folks that definitely were understandably, there are some things we'll probably get into that it's easy to be critical about, like some stuff about the ending where you might be like,
yeah, there's definitely. I mean, we'll get into it, but there's issues.
Okay.
So there's some folks that again like that was a hang up for them,
Right.
Like, and for my part, like I said, like I was able to go like I know what they're trying to do. You know what I mean? Like that was fun. That's cool.
Yeah.
We saw that thing. So I don't want to jump too far ahead.
No.
How about you, Matt?
I mean, I was very worried it was going to be garbage. Kind of to Jake's point. These are creatures that were designed, and when they were designed, were never meant to be put next to an actual human being.
Right.
And this. I hats off to the creative directors and the art department and like every possible person who made these things. They put ridiculous looking nonsense next to human beings and built a world where I won't say was seamless, of course not, but by 10, 15 minutes in, you don't notice. And that's what, I mean, Shahir, we've talked about this a ton with sort of my preference and stuff. If you can build a world and make me convinced that whatever you're showing me is what the world is, and you keep that consistency throughout the entire thing and don't ever break your own sort of rules you've set, I'm in. I might not, maybe I don't connect with the story or maybe whatever, but like you've crafted a world that now I can engage with. And I think this did a fantastic job. I think the stuff in the trailer that I know Shahir doesn't watch trailers.
Oh, nice.
But like there was the part with and I forget the giant tortoises' names, but
Pterodactyls?
is that what they were?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh,
Hey!
Yeah, I mean, so that's got to be the upgrade from the Blastoise. Is that
Yeah,
what those
or it's like it was like when they were giving it R and they became the giant things.
Yeah, for sure.
That moment in the trailer, it doesn't spoil what's happening, but you just see like the world folding in on itself, and I'm like, is this some Inception? Is like Mewtwo doing some shit? And I'm just like, I don't. But like they handled that very well when like there was sort of that cool reveal of these giant, like literally like park-sized Pokemon with things on their back. Where I think it failed in certain aspects was honestly mostly two issues. One, connective tissue between I'll call them set pieces or events felt very tenuous, very just sort of like, and now we're gonna go here, and they're there, which is that's a bit of a pedigree from I think even a callback a little bit to like how you'd structure a cartoon, like a half-hour cartoon.
We call that the Game of Thrones. That's
Yeah,
what we call that.
Yeah, there you go. Oh God, we're recording that and it hasn't come out yet. The finale tonight. This Sunday. Yay. But so that never really like I was like okay whatever, but then the third act and the actual like end plan of Richard, I think his name was Richard something, but Bill Nye,
Bill Nye's character.
Nye,
yeah. About like psychically merging with Mewtwo, but then not only that, like making everyone merge with their Pokemon because reasons and
because reasons.
and like cool, like whatever, but then like that the structure of what was happening, I was like, this is dumb. And that's fine. Here's the weird part. I actively thought it was dumb. I watched it, still enjoyed it, and like even though I felt like the ending was weird and rushed and with sort of the reveal of like the end of Tim's journey and Pikachu's journey, etc., I don't think it hit like it did not do the work to make it as emotional as I was about it. But like I think here's where something like there's two things. One, the pedigree of the thing and just the happiness that I felt that they didn't bungle it was sort of flowing with it. And then two, the film itself has a ton of heart, especially to have that much sort of like care and craft and sort of love put into this world that is intrinsically just weird and bizarre and kind of silly.
For sure.
I felt connected with the entirety of it, and like I didn't care that the plot didn't make a ton of sense by the end, because I'm like, I'm glad all of these characters are okay. And that kind of that touched a weird thing on me. Like we talk a lot about movies that are for kids that adults can enjoy, and there's different ways that can be done. You can infuse humor with it. They did that a little bit with Ryan Reynolds and some lines that probably went over kids' heads. You can do that.
I was very surprised by a lot of that, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I thought about this a lot when I heard that Ryan was doing it. I was like, okay, so they got one of the funniest people in the business to do this, and he's got talent just like out his ears. You know what I mean? But I was like, will this in any way allow him to use that talent? I mean, and I'll say this really quickly. Speaking of tangents, sometimes I feel like, you know, in like Ant-Man 1 especially, maybe the second one as well, I wanted to like unbox Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, I know that there is character and I know there's this type of stuff, but like, and I don't know enough about it. That's not one of those things where I'd love to be in the room. Like how did we handle it? Because there's times that I feel like they had like two little spots in the script where they're like, hey, this is where you get to riff, Paul.
Yeah.
And I just like, so I worried that maybe I was like, how with Ryan doing this, are they going to be able to tap into that stuff? And I was really surprised by a lot of stuff that I was like, if that's in the script, I will be floored.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm imagining, like, you know, having worked with, you know, in this world for a while, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, granted, our product is definitely, as you said, like oriented primarily towards some younger audiences. But not to say we have like a very huge contingency of adults as well, people of all ages.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a lot of stuff we can't do. Like, I mean, like, if I have a joke or I want to tweak with something or throw something in there, like, it's almost a, like, across the board, like, that's funny, Jake, but no.
Right.
So the fact that they let Ryan play with some of that stuff, or the script had it actually, actual writers, you know, and I don't know what it is. I was floored by that. Like, I think there was the joke about, what was the thing? There was a joke about, like, Mexico or something like that? There was, like, a bilingual
I mean, the search
joke.
the search history joke, it kind of feels like it's a little bit
No doubt.
pushing the boundary of
There was a line
what is acceptable.
when Tim was having trouble talking to Lucy, and he's like, I've talked to him before, and he's like, what, in
yeah.
the birth canal? Like, it was just
Yeah,
like, and that's not
yeah.
like raunchy by any means, but it's kind
It's
of
just
like, it's
on
like,
the boundary.
it's bordering what.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So like, films can do that and have adults sort of latch onto them, or there could be like, even for instance, we want to go to like Lion King or something like that. Like, there's an emotional through line in it that like actually ties to a larger, more adult sensibilities of things. This film, I think, weirdly, it kind of just hit more like, here's something. We're going to try to make you care so much about this world and this person that you won't really mind if the end of it kind of like unravels on itself.
Yeah.
And for me, it did that. It did that enough even as adult me. And maybe that comes from nostalgia. Maybe that comes from them doing just a really good job. Maybe it's a mix. I don't know. But Shahir, you've been awfully quiet.
Well, look, I mean, this conversation has been fascinating for me, and
he's leaving again. Everybody, he's walking out the door.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the education. I'm going to go buy some Pokemon cards.
Please do. Yes, buy Pokemon cards.
You know, like the sort of cultural history I'll bring to this has to do with cinema, obviously, and the merging of live action to animated characters is kind of the thing that I think I sort of latched onto the most regarding this particular film. That comes from, like one of my favorite animated cartoons is Anchors Away, the Tom and Jerry cartoon where Jerry dances with Gene Kelly. That is just this remarkable watershed moment in animation where there's this incredible sense of like the possibilities of how live action and animation go together. You jump ahead to 43 years later, and we get a film like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit is like the key touch point for me for this film, because Who Framed Roger Rabbit is not only a film I deeply adore, it's a film I think that manages to take a technological idea and make it entirely transcendent to the narrative, where the narrative of that film kind of trumps and foregrounds anything technologically that film is doing. And that film is remarkable technologically. Like the kind of level of interactivity they were doing between animation and real live actors in there is astounding, breathtaking. And that movie was wildly successful, kind of led us into things like I think Cool World came later, the Brad Pitt film by Ralph Bakshi. Again, similar noirish take, animated. This idea that there are the boundaries of this animated world versus the boundaries of our human world, and when they're put up against each other, it's kind of fun.
And we can't forget the third in this trifecta of mixing live action and animation. Space Jam,
of course, which is going to be making a comeback soon as well with LeBron James. The thing I think for me is that I'm sort of mixed on this film on two parts, which is one, the look of this film is extraordinary. The cinematography by John Matheson and the production design by Nigel Phelps, I believe it is breathtaking. They shot this thing on actual film in real locations. The way these characters have been transformed from 2D into 3D is so seamless, so perfect. I've seen what a Pikachu looks like in 2 dimensions, and what it translates to here is wonderful. And you only need to look so far to kind of see where that's gone wrong in the last week or two with Sonic the Hedgehog. So I think, to both of your points, that the idea that it actually kind of functions is really great. The movie, on a story level, entirely washed over me and just kind of happened in front of me as much as it was. And I think it has to do with that lack of connective tissue, the idea that the actual... I love a good noir tale. I'm a big Chinatown fan. Yep. I'm a big, LA Confidential, that sort of like unraveling of a greater mystery beyond a sort of a central inciting point between two characters. And I think Who Framed Roger Rabbit does this really beautifully. Sure. The unraveling of this greater world that Bill Nighy is kind of sort of trying to merge Pokemon to their trainers to, just not only did it not kind of make sense fundamentally, it also, I just didn't really care. Like, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me as to why it was happening or what it was trying to do. And I think, like, to that point, I sat back and I kind of wondered about how to watch this film. And I thought a little bit about the idea that it is made for kids. And there's that sense that, as long as the world kind of works well, then being made for kids is okay. But I also sort of internally push back at that idea, because I think some of the most transcendent movies are made for kids and don't wear that badge. They are...
No pun intended, am I right? He doesn't get it.
I don't get it. And the other side of what I thought about was what this film's purpose is. And in many ways, it is... like you were talking about earlier with Pokemon, is an extension of a game and it basically fuels the game's narrative. It creates a narrative around that game. But it also, by its very nature, is a branding exercise for that game. And there are many films that are kind of essentially branding exercises. And I think one of the most successful recently that you could argue is a branding exercise but never ever feels like that is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is an extension of the Spider-Man brand, but it never for a second feels that way, because the story is so engaging. The technology that's kind of created there is so immersive that you never even think about it. And the problem is I was thinking a lot about the technology in this film rather than thinking about the film. So for me, for the most part, while I kind of appreciated the sort of the fundamental fact that it was created well, that it was crafted with love and with dignity, and I guess is the kind of right way to think about it. Again, thinking about what's happening with Sonic right now is the sort of opposite of that. is positive, but ultimately the film was not was barely, it was kind of. it's not offensively bad, but it was just merely okay. But to me, being okay is almost not okay.
That's one of your cardinals. No, I mean, I
like it's there's nothing transcendent about it, and transcendency is not a every film kind of goal, but this is sort of just floating on a level that is like it just happened. Like I don't walk away going, I need to see more of this. I don't walk away with a greater engagement of this. I have more questions than I have answers. And that's kind of where I land on it. And I think ultimately the other question is if you're going to do this particular Detective Pikachu film, is part of the exercise to get someone like me who has no investment in this world to be invested in this world. And in that level, no, I don't.
what were you gonna?
Well, yeah, I did want to echo that. Like when I was kind of trying to log some observations about the piece, I did think that the marriage of the live action and the CG was definitely we're I don't want to say fortunate because again professionals poured time and energy into it, but like we've seen it gone awry, and this was not one of those cases. Like again, I think you're right. They painted that world incredibly. I mean, even from like moment one, I was like, as soon as I saw some of the interaction they showed Rhyme City, I was like, oh, thank goodness. Because, you know what I mean? Like, I had seen the trailer and stuff like that. So, like, I knew, like, Pikachu looked awesome. I'd seen some of that stuff. But, like, to see the work in the larger world and to not see certain, like, big things that jumped out and you're like, nah. We all know what that feels like when something doesn't quite gel properly.
Yeah.
They did an incredible job with that. And I even think of... I want to say this is a simple thing, but it's like I just know that it's like so not from being a filmmaker and being an actor. Like when Tim is carrying the injured Pikachu, like I'm like, do you know how hard that is? Like they have to animate a thing behind Tim's arm and have it like move in an organic way, but he's like probably carrying like a bag of potatoes that's painted green. You know what I mean? Like, and he's crying over it. I'm exaggerating about what he's carrying, but like when seeing all that and seeing how like organic it really looked, and I heard people too, like even people from the cast were like. They were so a lot of them were very thrilled with the way Pikachu came out. They're like you just want to squeeze him, like you just want to like you want one, you want to get one, which is like that is kind of the heart of Pikachu in general and why it's such a touchstone for the franchise. You know, everybody wants to have a Pikachu. It doesn't matter who you are. Like my wife is like where can we get one? Like you know.
It's funny, Shahir, you bring up too how it's you felt like it was a bit of a branding exercise more so than say an Into the Spider-Verse feels. I've always seen. In my adult life, Pokemon is a branding exercise. Like it's very nature. It's in the theme song. Gotta catch them all, and that means either time or money to do the things that you need to do. Games, whatever. Watching shows, advertisements, For whatever reason, this was the first Pokemon experience truly that I had none of that.
Right.
And it's interesting to me that as a fresh face, that's what you saw immediately. Yeah. And as someone whom I feel like I've been engrossed in it in a long time, this felt the most weirdly like non-commercial and like human emotional thing, which again is why I forgave more of its like story and structure problems because I literally, right until you said that, I had completely forgotten about all of the commercialism that is in Pokemon.
Right.
And it's all there. Like, there's no question that it is. But, like, it's weird that I just now am like, oh, yeah, that's part of the point. And this movie washed that from me completely.
Do you think on any level, Shahir, the fact that the story like left you a little kind of lukewarm, do you think it kind of then your analysis kind of went back to what the baser roots of what you knew it came out of? Did you ever go like, okay, like I know at its heart this is like derived from a card game and a video game?
No, the point here is that almost everything we watch is a branding exercise. Like we live in a world where franchise building is kind of the fundamental core of what any studio wants to do. So it's not a revelation that this is a branding exercise. What I guess my point is here is that while the visualization of the world felt entirely transcendent and never kind of made me think about that, the storyline itself felt somewhat flat. I guess is the word I would describe it, and flat to the point where I didn't care really what was happening in front of me for most of what was happening. I wasn't, there's no point at which where the film was kind of offensively bad, and I think the reason that can get away with that is you have to acknowledge that this is a film designed for kids, and sort of the revolutionary thing that Roger Rabbit did was made a very adult film for kids.
Yeah.
That's a hard noir film with a lot of material in it that doesn't feel like kids should be watching it. And so I think the sort of world we live in now, a film like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the Detective Pikachu world just wouldn't possibly happen.
Yeah.
But I also think that's kind of the problem for me is that having no brand affiliation to the thing, other than the look of the film. There's nothing to cling on to, and the problem there is I always say this is that if the thing you're clinging on to is the look, then you're not really clinging on to the film.
Well, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're just sort of. We had this. I think I'm just looking behind us. There was a conversation around Batman v Superman where one of our guests was like, "This is the best Batman ever," and I was like, I think just the look is the best Batman ever, but this is kind of one of the worst iterations of Batman ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's where I'm coming from for it is that it doesn't quite fulfill any function outside of I do acknowledge this thing looks great.
Yeah.
It's got this sort of Blade Runner kind of designed look that feels completely
Blade Runner meets Nintendo.
Yeah, but I think that's a really bold choice, and I also the fact that you guys mentioned earlier the notion that Detective Pikachu is like this sort of offset of the world. I think that's a really cool choice. Like I like the idea.
I think it's a smart choice
Yeah.
because I think they knew that, like Matt touched on earlier, that if you just kind of went with the OG staple and tried to like bring people along to your prototypical universe, like, hey, we're in a made up place where there's like you're gonna like a trainer, and we just tried to go down that road. I think you're right; it would have been harder to bring people along to for that ride. You know what I mean? So I think not only do I think it was a bold choice, but I think it was a
smart
good choice.
Yeah, and I love all of that side of it. I kind of feel like the actual the reason to be here, which is always to me is like, what is the story we're telling?
Yeah.
And does the story compelling on its own feet? I'm not quite there.
I was hoping that Tim's story would be enough. Like after seeing it and wondering what you would think about Shahir, I was hoping because I knew that the story itself by the end of it didn't even hold up for me.
Right.
But I was like, man, Tim and again Justice Smith.
Well, my big question there is why doesn't he recognize his dad's voice?
Well, so that's that's a huge.
I mean,
that's
it's
huge.
just such a huge barrier to kind of like. That's not really touched upon.
It is not,
and so like
Nope.
And that's that kind of fundamental story thing that doesn't.
That's a breakable moment. But his journey in itself, and again, I don't even think that like the ending when it's revealed that like Ryan Reynolds plays his dad. Like I don't think it's handled well.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the catharsis of like the end of the journey in a weird way. I was hoping anyway, because and this is more so in the first 2/3 of the film, and why I think I forgave sort of the last third with all of its problems, is that I was so like weirdly invested in this character, in Tim's character's journey, even though it was nonsensical and it jumped too quickly from a lot of, like what you said, Jake, Game of Thrones sort of like hopping all over the damn place.
Game of Thrones season 8, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of season 7. But
don't. If for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, don't tell them that Ned Stark comes back.
oh, that's true.
That was
yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
That was a powerful moment.
And
really.
then Tony Stark. No.
Also came back.
Yeah. No.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Out.
It's over. But I was curious. I was curious that if it worked, and it didn't, which is totally fine because there's a lot of issue here.
I guess fundamentally as well, like his journey from like an unsuccessful trainer or a person who's kind of abandoned the training world to where he ends up at the end.
We're still not a trainer at the end. But
Yeah,
like
it doesn't. And again, just as a comparison, thinking about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where Miles begins and where
Sure.
Miles ends.
Look,
You know what I mean?
I'm not going to say that this movie's story and emotional through line is in any way in the same contendership as Into the Spider-Verse.
But,
Just won an Academy Award, right?
Yeah.
yeah. I guess what I mean there is that it's really clear and easy to grapple with, and it is cathartic by the end of Into the Spider-Verse what that film is trying to do. It's
No
really
doubt.
unclear and not cathartic by I love complexity in films. I love films that like are abstract and unusual. Like we did Burning last week, which I kind of really
Sure.
latch on to films that kind of challenge me in very difficult ways. But I also I love films that have simplicity to them if the simplicity like lends itself to an elegant piece of catharsis.
Oh,
and
what?
this is not one of them.
What, Mr. Mime isn't abstract enough for you, Shahir?
I really liked Mr. Mime. Visually, again, I think what they did with Mr. Mime was really cool. I also love the Terror Turtles. I was like, oh, that's us. But again, I think I was just more latching on to the kind of mechanics of that
Sure.
than I was
Yeah.
actually what was happening. But Mr. Mime, like the idea that you could set Mr. Mime on fire by pretending to set him on fire, I thought, oh, that's pretty dark and cool. And weird. You know?
It was.
For that ending, I mean, you're right. Like that's definitely, for folks that are watching it, you might again be an eyebrow raising moment. And again, it doesn't make it all necessarily. Doesn't kind of sweep it all under the rug. But I had the same perspective you had. Like when I got done with that, I was like, I have to assume that moment isn't for me. You know what I mean? Like I'm watching it and I know what happened, but I think that there's a chance that if I were a younger viewer, I would have had even if I didn't yet have the capacity to kind of like dig in a little bit deeper, I'd have been like, whoa, the whole time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I said, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't like raise the question.
Yeah.
But I did see like it's kind of a slightly ham-handed revelation. You know what I mean? Like, and didn't you know?
But to your point, I think like I wonder, like almost in a sense, I wish we had like a 10-year-old joining us on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because if they were
Write
really
in, kids.
Yeah,
Write in.
yeah.
Send your comments in.
and ignore all the explicit content.
Of course.
in
Yeah.
this
Oh
episode.
yeah. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But like I would love to. I saw this late at night. So I don't. There was a kid in the audience, but I didn't hear what they were kind of like saying, and it was weird because it was like
You
I
didn't
went
approach them afterwards.
No,
like,
I didn't.
Hi, I'm Shahir.
Excuse me.
With the microphone.
Family, could I chat with your child?
Yeah. Could I just take your child? No. Because it was also a 10:30 screening, and like when someone brings a kid to a 10:30 screening on a Monday,
No.
I'm like,
They don't got school.
Where'd you see it? I saw it at 10:30 as well.
I saw it at the Kaufman Astoria.
okay,
right
God,
here,
I was in Brooklyn. Yeah.
But I would be curious if a kid really responds to this.
Well, actually, listeners with kids, how about this? Write us in, onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. If you've seen this movie with your child, tell us, how that experience not only affected you, but if they've talked to you about, like, what they've actually thought about the film. If it's, because there's two sort of levels of, like, child interest, I feel like, when it comes to media. It's one is, like, blatant excitement, like, screaming about a thing and, like, really wanting, like, and da-da-da-da, and sort of inspiring play, I guess I'll say. And then the second one would be, like, actually, and this is probably for slightly older kids, but like talking about what happened and asking questions about certain things.
I think this film kind of falls into like a weird category where because people have asked me, did you take I've got a 3-year-old son, did you take your son to the movie? And I was like, no, there's no way I would take my son to this movie because it feels like it's way too grown up for him.
Sure, yeah.
And then I feel like it also falls into like this weird zone of like 10 to 16 or something around that
Maybe.
ballpark where this is where the film works. And I think beyond that, I don't think it might work to an extent, but not really. And I think beyond the 21-year-old, I'm not sure this film's going to really work.
Yeah, sure. And like I said, unless you're like a fan, you know what I mean? Or nostalgia factor. I mean, like, because like we go think about it, like if you can't get out to it and you check out Rotten Tomatoes and like one of the Marvel movies gets just like absolutely obliterated, we still go. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of reasons we still go, but and this podcast being one of them for me. But
And I would just go.
Yeah. No, and I think that comes down to brand recognition as well. Like if this wasn't Pikachu, if this was just a random story with random characters that we'd never seen before.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very kind of middling kind of feeling that I have from this because I think the visual side of it is so good, and so well established that it's sort of a.
I think I nailed something in my brain real quick, and both of you please chime in.
We'll let you know.
Okay, I appreciate that. Visually, and for me, on one or two character moments, it elevated the property, I feel like. From a story perspective, like, weirdly, and actually this isn't that weird, I think like even the first Pokemon movie, which this movie actually harkens back to, like there's a line about Mewtwo and like hasn't been seen in 20 years since the Kodos region or whatever it was. Like that's the first animated film they're referencing when they first discover Mewtwo.
Yeah.
That movie actually is a really heavy emotional journey. I don't know if you've seen it, Jake, in a long time.
Not
Right?
recently,
I'm
no.
pretty sure that Shahir has not. And I haven't even either. But I remember watching it even as an older person and being like, oh wow, like this is deeper than I was expecting. So like a film like that, I think also elevated the medium from a story and sort of emotional through line point where this did not.
Right.
Like and it's a weird sort of balancing act for I think everyone who watches it who is an adult. Whether or not the balancing act is something, if that's a tightrope that they are I guess, willing to walk. I think my analogy broke down, but the bottom line is it elevates the medium in certain regards, and it definitely is a step back. I've seen, basically what I was trying to say is I've seen Pokemon cartoons that deal with more, have better story, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And so this worked for me, but I totally see how it can absolutely not work for a lot of people.
I'm going to just chime in with a couple of tweets here from @DrivenIt by Tatiana, who basically chimes in with just a little bit of Mewtwo backstory. Maybe you guys can kind of verify this for me. But in Pokemon, the first movie, Mewtwo was created in a lab and hates humans. He's trying to take over the world and is cloned by other Pokemon. Mewtwo is cloned from Mew.
Yes.
Does that have any bearing on this story?
Not really.
Not really?
Well, only in that, like, there's reason to maybe be concerned about Mewtwo. Like, Mewtwo, again, from the first movie, is like an angry Pokemon who has been forced into existence, I guess, by humans, I believe.
Yeah, Mew is an ancient Pokemon, one of the most powerful ancient Pokemons that's supposed to be dead, but then they found its DNA, cloned it, and then
Jurassic
made
Park
it
style?
in a lab Jurassic Park style and made Mewtwo.
Which that all went swimmingly.
Yeah, it went great. Everything, spared no expense. But then Mewtwo freaks out because he's like, why did you do this? They were torturing it, trying to figure out stuff. In this movie, they kind of do it again with like taking the R out. Is R a reference to Team Rocket? I don't know. But then that's why Mewtwo is sort of like angry in that film.
Okay.
And then by the end of that, he and Ash kind of have like a moment of catharsis, and he just like goes off. Like he's like, I'm not going to destroy humanity anymore because you taught me whatever the heck and blah blah blah.
So in that first moment when you saw Mewtwo, because he's like literally the first Pokemon you see, when you see him, and if you're a fan of the show, if you know the world, if you know the lore, you'll be like, oh,
that's a
right?
stake.
Yeah,
Actually,
you might be. Yeah.
You know what? That might be a weird another reason why a non-fan or someone who's not familiar with the world instantly doesn't connect. Because I feel like in the Pokemon universe, the second you see Mewtwo, you're like, oh, shit's about to get real.
There might be a problem, especially if it's trapped back in that like scientific lab. You're like, this is not good. Like,
It's basically
because I watched it, I was like, I don't know what this is.
It's I know exactly, but it's basically the Thanos of Pokemon in a weird way. So when you see that, and I was shocked that they opened with that. I was like, really? We're leading with Mewtwo?
Yeah.
Okay.
So sorry, we interrupted.
No. And then one more tweet just from Laura Kate, who says, who's basically just reviewing the film for us, but who said it was a fun first half. Justice Ryan worked well. The Terra Turtles was so incredibly unnecessary. Whole last act was just off. Ryan Reynolds does not become a fatherly figure just when you put glasses on him. But God, I could stare at chubby little Pikachu for hours.
Fair.
I think that, like we all kind of find the things that does and doesn't work for us, and this is just one of those cases. I like the Terra Turtles, but I agree. They just sort of happen, and there's no real rhyme or reason to why they happen.
There's a throwaway line as to why they exist, and they're so big because they're experimenting on them. They're like, oh, are these them? This is their normal size. What the heck? And then they go outside, and then turns out that's the tank.
But it has no consequence to the story, right?
Literally none.
Yeah. So
except that there's like there's kind of like a saving moment, right? Doesn't somebody helps Tim, but I think Pikachu help Tim, but then Pikachu gets hurt, and then like it sets up that. So the Terra Turtle
brings
us into that. It's a pretty elaborate way to get us into a Pikachu injury.
My question is, who captures a Terra Turtle?
Oh, no one.
No one.
No one.
I mean, because I think they're saying that like they don't touch on Mega Evolution in here, but Mega Evolution is something that was introduced back in like the XY series, which is kind of like we've seen the Pokemon that have evolved to their top levels, but then we learn a little bit about Mega Evolution, which is this like process that would allow them to go even a little bit further. But what they're saying, with if they are the Terra Turtles, that whatever happened to them was obviously like beyond the pale of the type of experimentation that should be happening. Because you
Professor Sycamore's specialty is Mega Evolution, if I remember.
Oh, right. Well, but it is kind of like the Terra Turtles seemed like they are a world-changing event, but they're kind of just a background event in this film.
They're going back to sleep. Don't worry about them.
Yeah,
Don't worry about
they're
those.
cool.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. They're not going to walk towards Rhyme
I mean, I would
City.
love if the end shot was just like a pan into the sky, tilt down, and we see a Terra Turtles approaching the city.
walking.
Yeah, exactly. Just trouncing Rhyme City.
Yeah.
Like they want to work together.
Yeah.
We want to work here.
And then they pan over, and then we see Ash. Right?
Yeah, and
Would
then
that
Ash
be
is in the. I don't.
Ash is at the helm.
Just riding it.
Oh, wow.
I don't know personally, and I know we're wrapping up. I don't want to see an Ash in a movie. I don't want it.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I don't know. I do think it should stick to the movies. The movies that we bring out every year still continue to find like really cool narratives and different things to explore, whether it's on a personal level or something, within the science of the realm and things like that. And I think they're doing a great job with that. But you're right, like that's like, the struggles that like the DBZ world have had making a live action Dragon Ball Z. Like even these iconic characters, and you put them in there, like we struggle with it a little bit with connecting. One thing I did want to bring up too, which, maybe we touched on, but they're in Detective Pikachu. Throughout the whole thing, I think you knew from the trailer that there was definitely, this is very much like a father-son movie.
Yeah.
Like, this is like a deep part of it. I thought it was like really clear from the trailer. And then throughout the movie, it's about like an absentee father.
Right.
Like, wouldn't we all agree? Like, there are so many shots of someone who is most likely not Ryan Reynolds
Of course.
wearing a ski cap.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure in the film why they're estranged.
The mother passed away, and then he lived with the mother's mother, I think.
I think it was a grandmother.
Yeah.
The father went off to do work, which we assume he buried himself in his work, especially solving
crimes because he was distraught over the but then like
None of the stuff kind of says I should abandon my child.
No, but then like
He's
there's
got
other
all that money
things.
from Deadpool. Why?
Yeah,
did he
yeah.
have to work? I don't understand.
I mean, the mirror. Oh, sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, but then there's a scene, and I don't think the flashback scenes work particularly well in this film either. But there's the scene where like he's going to go on the train to Rhyme City to visit his father, and then he just doesn't want to go.
Right.
And then it's sort of like it became apparent to me that like it felt, and again, they don't do this eloquently, but both Tim and Ryan Reynolds, father Ryan Reynolds, both kind of like equally avoided each other, probably from the pain of losing the mother/wife. And again, I'm reaching.
I didn't get any of that. Like I was just like, oh, they're estranged for a
But
reason.
there were moments of that, but they definitely did not.
You know what?
focus
What
on
actually
that.
kind of I thought was like an interesting link, but didn't quite connect, was the idea that the Bill Nighy and his son were kind of heading down the same path and mirrored the Ryan Reynolds Tim relationship in some
interesting.
way. I thought that was kind of an interesting,
Yeah.
dynamic, but didn't.
I felt like we needed so much more time to unpack that too. Like the thing that they tried to set up with Bill Nighy's son, like it felt. Here's another thing too about from the writing standpoint, like because of the amount of stuff they apparently wanted to shoehorn in, we got told a fair amount of things.
Yeah.
And
especially
you like stuff
with 3D like recreation.
Yes.
Like
that
the
was a
second time it
device-
happened, I was like, okay, guys, are we
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah, the
Cool.
device. I was like, as soon as they did it the first time, I was like, I am already concerned about the next time you do it.
Yeah. This technology is now going to be everywhere.
I'm sorry, I cut you off in terms of like the shoehorning of what they were trying to do in this story.
Oh, who knows? I have no idea what I was saying. When we're talking about Bill and his son, there's another thing too. Do you guys have you watched or talked about Love, Death, and Robots? Have you
I've
guys?
seen a
little
few
bit,
of them, but I
yeah.
have not gone through the entire series.
Has anybody seen the first one of the first
Well,
season?
it's different. It's different depending on where you are. They actually there
interesting.
was a social experiment to see how many people stuck with it based on what was their first episode.
Wow, that's genius. I
Yeah.
love that. The first one for my region
Yes.
was, I believe, is Sunny's Edge, I think.
Is that the one that's basically Pokemon but like real dark?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reason I brought it up because Sunny's Edge, I think it's that. I hope I'm getting the name right. Spoiler alert for this one as well.
Sure.
But the end of it, the battling system is that people can use, like, basically they are in charge of battling these incredible, powerful creatures, and it's very dark and very disturbing. And what we learn at the end of this is that the reveal, which is pretty dramatic in the piece, like it's a dark piece and it's powerful, and the ending does actually get you. Is that the person isn't just controlling the creature, like the person has actually transferred their entire mental state into it. So it's not like, hey, I'm me, I'm controlling the thing. Like, no, it's like they've fully put themselves into the creature.
Yeah.
And it's, again, if it sounds basic coming out of my mouth, like definitely fire it up and watch it, assuming you're of the appropriate age.
Sure. Yeah, it's a pretty adult episode.
Yeah.
Have you seen this one, Shahir, or no?
I don't believe I've only seen a handful of the Love, Death,
I
and
think you'd
Robots.
remember it. It's pretty it's pretty.
It's
It's a little
intense.
graphic, and but so anywho, like it was interesting having seen that. Like this isn't the first time we've ever seen like people battling each other trying to control a creature. But maybe it's because I saw Sunny's Edge this year that I saw that part at the end, and as soon as they put that on his head and he like transferred himself into Mewtwo, I was like, you know, what I mean?
Right,
Like, it gave me a little bit of deja vu.
I think the only thing there in that ending was that it was done so quickly and undone so quickly. It also didn't have like the classic screenwriting structure thing, which was that there was no ticking clock to get us to that point. It was like wasn't
No.
evident why Mewtwo needed to do this at this point and not just at any other point.
And also, you could just take Bill Nye out of the headset, and then it's over. Like that's the thing. Like he's just gonna stay at his desk forever.
No, my wife Jenna leaned over to me and she's like, "What's gonna happen to all the people?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "I think they're gonna." And then at that moment, everybody's like, "Coming back!" And I was like, "There we go. Okay, we're good."
oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say, do you have one more thing on that?
Only other thing, I like the little beady eyes of the shape-shifting creature.
Oh,
I thought that
Ditto was a show stealer in my
Indeed,
opinion.
yeah.
I had no idea it was going to be the actress who was like the sneaky, like spy sort of character. And then when it just started, I thought that was the only time in this movie I was actually surprised by anything. Was that what turned out to be a Ditto?
I didn't understand what was happening, but I was like, "Oh, those beady eyes look cool."
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So another moment where like the universe kind of left a person who was coming to it, what considered the blank slate, a little bit behind.
I mean, I understood that there was a cloning character. I just didn't understand why there was a.
Did you know its
character.
name was Ditto?
I did not.
It did. They did say it. That's why. Actually, I don't think they. Oh no, they do call it out. They're like, it's just Ditto or whatever, and it actually does go Ditto like it one. Anyway,
All right.
so I think we can all agree that we don't agree entirely, the three of us, on everything of this film. But
That's fine.
That's
That's fine.
okay. That's because we all see different. We'd all have different starter Pokemon. Shahir,
Yeah, I know nothing.
you
I
would
know
have.
nothing, Jon Snow.
Ooh, who would your starter Pokemon be, Shahir?
Isn't just no one just starts on Pikachu?
No, you. Everyone has their own sort of like.
Oh.
You can get
Yeah,
a
well,
Charmander. You can get yourself a Squirtle.
I honestly
you can-
think Shahir would be.
Squirtle sounds like
Water
a
type?
venereal disease.
Yeah,
No.
well, you don't want to catch a squirrel.
No, no, don't get a Squirtle. Again, I'm not sort of caught up. I would say that Shahir would like the versatility of an Eevee.
Oh, wait. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't go wrong with an Eevee.
I'm gonna
Eevee's
just
a-
Google what an Eevee is. Eevees can evolve into 8 different things or something. Most of
they're
them can
cute.
only do like 3. They're like these cool fox-looking things, and they're all depending on what element you go towards.
Yeah, very
Oh, they're
cute.
very cute.
Very, yes, indeed.
Anyway, wow. Well, we covered a bunch of stuff about the history of Pokemon and whatnot. This has been the only podcast about the film Detective Pikachu, by the way. So just in case you're wondering, Jake,
Thank you.
thank you so much for coming by
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
and nerding out with me and helping me educate.
Yeah, and educating me.
It should
Classes
hear.
in session.
All I can say is that I hope that most of it was right.
We did the best we could.
Indeed. I've been fortunate enough to work on this show for a while, work on some other properties. So if I ended up jamming a lot of things together, if I said for some reason that something was a mech versus versus a Pokemon, that was probably a mistake.
Yeah.
My Captain America moment is I understood that reference.
When you are not voicing all of the melodious characters that you do, where can folks find you? Actually, tell me where they can find you other than that, and then tell me where they can currently find you in that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, if folks ever want to harass me on social media or anything, Twitter's usually the best way to do that. I'm just at Jake Pake, JakePaque. That's a good way to reach me. I'm a big fan of fan art and the art community that surrounds so many of these things, whether it's Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Winx Club, Gundam, any of that type of stuff. Also, like for fans of D&D out there, a couple of my colleagues are the people that run and do Critical Role.
Oh, nice. Matt Mercer's crew.
Absolutely, yeah. I know Matt and Sam, and I think I've run into a couple of their folks from that team.
Yeah.
But they do incredible work, and too, like their relationship with the fan community and the fan art is just so fantastic. The reason I bring it up is because I do try and like people will send me pictures of like art from a show I'm in or from my characters, and I always try and like share that stuff because it's not a skill that I have, and I really marvel at it. And I think the stuff that people create is just uncanny. So I love sharing that.
I thought you were just like trying to get more people to send you fan art right now.
Yeah.
So if you aren't drawing fan art of my characters, start now.
And then, so you're obviously Professor Sycamore on the current sort of gen of
The last arc. So
Gotcha.
we're in Sun and Moon now. For X, Y, and Z, I was the professor, then Professor Sycamore. Right now, as I mentioned, I voice some Pokemon, and then I'm also a recurring character as one of the members of Team Skull.
That's right.
I'm Zip.
Okay.
Who is this will be a joke for anybody that follows the show, but I'm definitely the leader.
Your assistant to the regional manager.
I said leader. No, and it's kind of funny too because like his voice is so different than anything I've done on the show before. Like some people have like hit me up online. They're like wait, like you're doing that role after doing Professor Sycamore or whatever, because they let me do something pretty fun,
Nice.
and pretty crazy.
That's always good when
Do
that
you want to give
gets
us a
happen.
taste, or is it we can't hear it?
Well, I mean, I can do I can do something that it won't be from this show, but yeah, he's got like this, like, so Professor Sycamore was like a very scholarly, like very compassionate kind guy, and then the Zip from Team Skull is like, yeah, boy, get him! Like, he's like somebody who's like always talk screaming and like has a really high pitched voice that like cracks a lot of the time, and people are like, wait, what?
That's very cool.
It's definitely a Zip. That's
Yeah,
definitely
yeah, it's very
the
zippy,
namesake is good.
And then, yeah, I think the other one that I'm doing, like I said, right now, I'm playing Yusaku Fujiki, who's the protagonist on Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, which is a very exciting big deal. Our first season just went live, I think, earlier this year.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, it's exciting. Got an awesome casting crew. The art style and animation on Yu-Gi-Oh! Is something that like I am just in love with. Like they're great, and my team, the directors, engineers, everybody there is just fantastic. So
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is something that I've never followed, but every time I flip through a channel and the art style hits, I'm always like, oh. And like I'll get entranced for it until basically the show's over. That's very cool. I like that a lot.
We'll have to bring it back for the Yu-Gi-Oh! movie.
For when the live action
Detective
Yu-Gi-Oh! movie comes in.
Fingers crossed.
Please come back anytime. Anytime too that you want to talk about a film that you are passionate about, whether you love it or hate it. We our wonderful guests. We love having you back because we talk about a lot of our Brett. We did Detective Pikachu this week. We did the Korean film Burning, which is, if you want a difference in spectrum of film, that's where we are.
Well, we're also on another podcast this week. We're on the Test of Time podcast, talking about an even broader spectrum of film. We're talking about William Friedkin's 1977 film Sorcerer, which have you heard or know of the film Sorcerer?
I know of it, but I know that I haven't seen it.
Many people haven't seen it because it was released the same week as a little film called Star Wars, and basically disappeared off the face of the planet because of that.
We got him.
So we're on the Test of Time podcast. You can hear us riffing on the film Sorcerer. You can also find my work at www.shahirdowd.com. That's SHAHA. Well, I can't even spell my name properly.
I believe in you.
Probably. I'll start that again. www.SHAHIRDAUD.com.
Nailed it.
Matt, where can folks find you?
You can find me at matthewkrl.com for my life and works. Also, Skeletor, the number 4, PREZ on Instagram, or Emperor MSK on Twitter. As always, too, check out all of our good works we're doing over on Extra Credits on YouTube. We have, what's coming out Monday? Oh, we got a cool one coming out, which actually I got to flex a little bit of character chops on, which I was very excited about. It's called Warriors and Warlocks, and it's basically Russian mythology, and it's about a soldier that comes back from war and saves a town from a warlock, and I chewed a lot of scenery, and it was very, very fun. And then I think, what do we got? Oh, and then we have an episode on our gaming side about comfortable play, and when you brought up Matt Mercer and sort of the Critical Role stuff for tabletop RPGs and things like that, like what's the best way to keep your players and your community that you do sort of in a space where they feel comfortable to explore, but also that they feel comfortable in being like, I'm not cool with where this is going, and how you can do that without the game breaking. So that's very good stuff too.
When you said comfortable play, I was like imagining nachos and pajamas.
I mean, that's also too. That episode was actually written by Eddie Webb, who was one of the writers in the original Vampire the Masquerade RPG, which is phenomenal. I mean, I even bowed down to him, like goth 14-year-old me. I was like, I can't believe I'm working with this guy. But yeah, so check all that stuff out. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening, and we will talk at you. What are we doing next week?
I'm not sure. Maybe email us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com and hit us up with a suggestion. I don't know. What's coming out next week?
I would love to do John Wick 3, but I don't know if I can get...
I'm actually curious to see it because I've seen the first one.
You haven't seen the second one?
I have not
you should see the second one. I just watched both. Have you seen any of them?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Both.
I'm curious.
And John Wick Reloaded, which it's not called. but that's a tie-in if you've seen Matrix 2.
Yes. And then Revelations.
That was
the third one.
Yeah.
I have definite thoughts about John Wick, having only seen one of them.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll do it. We'll do it. Anyway, again, Jake, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.